I think it's a Marxist concept of self-determination and ethnic identity has not served Ethiopia well. And in the future, I hope the younger generation realizes there is strength in unity and that we will at least revert back to some form of unified nation. And I don't know what shape that it will take, but we will willing to play a role in that.
That was His Imperial Highness Prince Ermias Sahle-Selassie, the president of the Crown Council of Ethiopia, who I was delighted to meet and talk to a few weeks ago during a visit to the Washington, D.C. area. The Crown Council is a constitutional body which advises the reigning emperor of Ethiopia, or when there is no emperor on the throne, as is the case today, it acts as the crown in the emperor's absence. When Ethiopia's imperial government was overthrown in the mid-1970s, the membership of the Crown Council was driven into exile, imprisoned, or in many cases, murdered. In 1993, the imperial family reconvened the council, initially to act as an imperial government in exile. But in 2004, its mission was redefined to focus on cultural, humanitarian, and developmental goals. Since then, the council has not sought to play a political role. Prince Ermias suggested that I publish this video on September 11th, which in the Ethiopian calendar is the first day of the year, a holiday also known as Enkuጣጣሽ. And so, that's what I've done. And I want to wish everyone watching a Happy New Year and a welcome to the Ethiopian year of 2018. And now, on with the interview.
Normally, I ask people to introduce themselves. Is that appropriate for you?
That's fine.
Yeah?
That's fine, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm Ermias Sahle-Selassie. I was born with a formal title, which is His Imperial Highness Prince Ermias Sahle-Selassie. And I am currently president of the Ethiopian Crown Council. And it's a pleasure to have this opportunity to talk with you today.
Ethiopia has always been a country I've been especially interested in, even before I went there as a backpacker.
Yes.
To meet you in person is just a huge thrill.
Thank you. It's a pleasure for me, and I'm really happy that you've also visited Ethiopia. We can have a very meaningful conversation.
Well, I guess, could you just explain what is the Crown Council of Ethiopia to people who are not familiar with it, and why is it important?
Well, the Crown Council has always been part and parcel of institutions as far as the monarchy is concerned. And it was always an advisory body to the emperor. And often it was senior members of the Solomonic dynasty, people such as my uncle, who were the crown prince, who led it in the old days. So its role was really in an advisory capacity, sort of a sounding board. Today, we have decided not to take a political role and focus more on Ethiopian unity and Ethiopian identity, which really is being tested at the moment because we have now kind of devolved into ethnic enclaves. And we're losing that sense of Ethiopianism. And to me, that's such an important part of the heritage of Ethiopia. And without our unity, we're going to be, dispersed into smaller enclaves. And I don't think that will serve Ethiopia in the long term.
When the Crown Council was reestablished, which I think was in 1993.
Yes.
So the imperial family came together and reestablished it, and you were appointed president at that point. I have two questions. Well, how did you become the president? And then following that, I know in 2004 you mentioned the reform to focus on a non-political role. Why was that decision made?
Well, the way I think other members of the family were also appointed in different positions, and it was the advisors to my uncle who chose that I take this responsibility. I think mostly it's because I showed interest, or I was motivated even for myself to find Ethiopian identity back. And having lived in exile most of my life, I knew that a lot of Ethiopians were also, sort of struggling with dual or triple identities, and that identity was very important, and also our history. And the communists tried to really wipe out 3,000 years of history, which you can't. But I think for me personally, that was a big motivation, that you cannot just erase, that history and bury it and always think that you start all anew without any reference to your history or a direction for the future.
So tell me if this is going into an area you don't want to discuss, but the fracturing of the Ethiopian identity you referred to, I'm guessing you mean like the Tigray in the north and the Roma in the south.
And ethnic identities.
All these different groups,
yes,
either wanting autonomy or more, or just wanting to put their own identity first. So do you see the Crown Council's role is to try and sort of keep everyone together inside like Ethiopian first, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, how many ways would you slice us? Because we were born from so many different ethnic groups in Ethiopia. And it's not only unique to the royal family, as are many Ethiopians. So there's no clear delineation of a certain ethnic identity. And this whole, I think it's a Marxist concept of self-determination and ethnic identity has not served Ethiopia well. And in the future, I hope the younger generation realizes there is strength in unity, and that we will at least revert back to some form of a unified nation. And I don't know what shape that it will take, but we will willing to play a role in that.
So I know that Haile Selassie was born in Harar.
Yes, he was.
I went to Harar.
Isn't it a beautiful country? Yes, it's an amazing place.
And Harar is really different from Addis Ababa and other cities. And it's more of a Muslim city. Definitely a Muslim city. So is that like an example of what you're talking about, the sort of mixed identity?
Yes, I mean, so is Addis Ababa. If you notice, Addis Ababa is a very multi-ethnic and, religiously diverse. Not perhaps as exotic as Harar, but, if you look at major cities in Ethiopia, they're very mixed. So you may argue it's the urbanized centers of Ethiopia, but that's not very true. That mixture goes throughout also the country.
So as the Crown Council, how is it the legitimacy of the Crown Council, I guess, and that sort of connection to history that gives it the legitimacy, I guess, to play this role, do you think? Or is there something else that the Crown Council has that can help be a unifying force for Ethiopia?
Well, the Crown Council essentially also had a religious role in terms of at least the emperor was always defender of the faith. So, of course, it has also a role in Ethiopian Orthodoxy, which is a very ancient Christendom faith. It's a living faith. But also at the same time, it was a body, basically, that tolerated the different religions in Ethiopia, including Islam, Judaism, and so forth. So it's not simply unity in diversity, but it was a fact. It was working towards a multi-nation state that would be proud of continuing its identity and history into the long term.
The Crown Council is really important for Ethiopia, but does it have is its role just focused on Ethiopia, or does it have, an outward-looking role representing Ethiopian culture outwardly or to the diaspora?
It's very interesting. I think it has certainly a role within African unity, for instance. and also in terms of the African diaspora worldwide. I mean,
Okay.
Into the Caribbean, into Central America, and so forth, because Ethiopia was unconquered. It was an independently developed nation that gave pride to really the history of black people worldwide who, through slavery, to being colonized, had suffered a great deal. So I think that sense of independence resonates with these people. So it has a role in that. And of course, His Majesty was very active internationally. So he built up, he got Ethiopia known worldwide. And that's very important because today we're just another, poor African country and really have lost that sense of pride in really who we are and what we represent to a larger worldwide community.
Your grandfather was His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie, and he was one of the most significant figures of the 20th century. And I think I've read that you knew him.
Yes, of course.
Can you just tell us what he was like? What are your memories of him?
My father died when I was about 2 years old. So, like a lot of my other cousins whose father also died earlier, he was more or less a father figure for us. I knew him from very early age till the time I was 14, which was the start of the revolution. So I have childhood memories, but distinct ones. And I think I remember most him visiting the zoo, the palace. He was very fond of animals. He loved horses. He loved cows. He loved the animals that were in the palace. His dogs, and that was very exotic as a child to walk with him and explore these things. I remember also going with walks with him in some parts of Ethiopia. Other than the formal ceremonies like Easter and Christmas, which are very strong memories for me, I think the fondest memory I have is essentially the Christmas parties he used to throw at the palace, and we were to be the last to receive the gifts at the end of everybody else. And seeing him also when I was in school in England, he used to come to visit, not at the school, but when he used to come to London, we used to receive him at the airport and take him to the hotel. So I got an opportunity to see him also in different places.
Wow. To me, he's a fascinating figure in his own right, but also I think he's incredibly important in that he was standing at the end, in this sort of ancient monarchy that goes back 2,000 years in the Solomonic dynasty. So he's very much rooted in this history, but he was very much a reformer,
very much so.
A political reformer. Could you just explain that, his role as a reformer? Because I think a lot of people assume an emperor would be just very conservative and not changes.
Well, a lot of people have judged his reign, which has spanned a long period of time. I think he started getting responsibility at a very young age, I think at 16, till the age of 84 or 85. So he did span a very long period in his reign. Interestingly, he often is described as somebody who brought Ethiopia from the donkey age to the jet age. And that's really the best way to describe it, because at that time Ethiopia was very rural, a very mountainous country with very little infrastructure. And at the end of his reign, he had established Ethiopian Airways, which is a world-class airlines today, and built, infrastructure to the best of his capability. I think also his reign was interrupted through the Italian invasion during World War II. So imagine having started a period of reform and then having to be thrown out of your country, get back reinstated, and have to rebuild again from scratch. I mean, really, although the Italians left some form of infrastructure, they also killed a lot of our young, able people. So to build that human resource, it took a lot. And he was very dedicated to educating Ethiopians, regardless, and especially focused on the underprivileged. And he was also Minister of Education for a period of time.
I mean, I'm an American living in the UK, and the concept of monarchy to me was like totally foreign.
Yes, of course. Yes.
When I arrived,
Yes.
And exotic and strange. But I mean, I'm very much a Democrat in the sense of liberal democracy, but I can see the benefit of having a monarch who is above the fray and who provides a sense of legitimacy to the state and to different things that politicians just don't do that very well.
So and also a sense of continuity, because it seems we keep destroying one sense of governance and replacing with a brand new ideology, and then destroying that, and then creating yet another one. So it's important to have some sort of thread, especially in an ancient nation like Ethiopia.
Yeah, and so in the UK, the thing I've come to realize over time is that continuity and stability is very important. You know, the British legal system is so well respected because it's consistent, because it doesn't change. And although I'm all for change in terms of improving things, I can also see the benefit in having a system in which people feel reassured that things are not going to suddenly change.
Yes, and this is what the turbulence we've been going through since 74, the last 50 years. It's been a very turbulent part of our history, because revolutions destroy the fabric of societies.
So, I mean, I still I can see problems with monarchy as well. It's not like I see that it's just a solution for everything. But I guess what I'm saying is I appreciate now the value in a way that, I mean, I may have understood that intellectually once before, but living through it,
yes,
it's very different, and I can see.
And people have different concepts of monarchy. I mean, monarchy does evolve. I mean, there's absolute monarchy, parliamentary monarchy, and etc. So it's not static. It's something that can really sort of adapt and evolve. And I think that's where we had a misstep in Ethiopia.
So I was surprised when I went on your website to see that you had traveled to Ethiopia for Christmas.
Yes, I did.
Which is not the same Christmas. It's January 7th.
It's January 7th.
I sort of assumed that you being in Ethiopia could be problematic for, I don't know, it would just, you would be discouraged from coming or something. In the same way that monarchs, exiled monarch or imperial families are in other countries. So could you just explain, I guess I have lots of questions. What was it like? Is that something you do regularly? And how do people react to you? And do you do this with the permission of the government or?
Well, you know, we've experienced both parts. We were persona non grata. We couldn't even enter Ethiopia, and a lot of our family were in prison up to 1992, from 1975 till 1992. After 1992, we were granted Ethiopian citizenship like everybody else, that we have a right to return home, visit family, and so forth. And progressively in time, the first experience was very difficult, but I kept going back. It was, we've had no real issues with the government, neither do we have to ask them. I carry an Ethiopian passport, which I'm very proud of. And we just are treated like regular Ethiopians, which is really remarkable when you think that I never thought I'd ever go back to Ethiopia after the communists.
Really?
Yes, absolutely.
So do you mean like even in the 90s, you thought, like when it first...
Yes, in the early 90s, late 80s, when the military government and later the communists were in charge? Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
What was it like the first time you went back?
Oh, it was really like a sense of just watching ghosts, because it was just memories, and those people didn't exist anymore. So you were basically living through in the past, but you're present. And the nice thing is Ethiopia hadn't changed that much during that time. This was my first visit, I think it was 2000. And the people hadn't changed that much. There was a sense of connecting with the people, connecting back with the church. And really, we encountered no problem. And of course, we weren't outspoken politically, so that helped. So keeping, balanced and being able to just take in all the experiences was a very nice part for me.
Can you give me an example? When people, maybe they didn't recognize you, they hadn't known you before, but they found out who you are, how did they react? Or did they not find out?
Well, they do. Of course, they find out. Word gets around very quick. One of the things, for instance, I experienced was I was driving and some kids stopped me, and they had portraits of my grandparents on a wooden, frame. And they were so happy to present it. And these are kids that probably never knew or have any experience of it. And maybe they were looking to have some little pocket money. But for me, it was so touching that, we could do that.
Do you foresee the Crown Council having any sort of formal role at all, even a formal cultural role, or will it continue to have this sort of status it does now, where it exists and it's tied to the past regime, but it's not maybe officially
incorporated?
Yeah.
Well, that really will depend on the Ethiopian people. Ultimately, what role it will take. But what will be important is our connection to the church, very important for us, are important to our relationship with the people, to be above ethnic politics, to see the larger picture, to build on the past, not necessarily be stuck in it, but to see a way forward. So we have also been engaged in practical things like education, sponsoring scholarships, renovating schools, helping renovate the cathedrals. These are just steps of goodwill that eventually what form it will take will always depend on the Ethiopian people. How they will decide, whether they say, well, you're royal, you can be honorary citizen, live amongst us, we're fine with that. Because we've had the opposite. If they want to incorporate it more formally, have it play a cultural role, even better.
But you've mentioned a few times the connection to the church and why it's so important. You're not the current crown prince. The crown prince is your cousin,
yes.
Who is Zara Jacob
yes.
Sahle-Selassie.
Yes.
Does he live in the UK?
He lives in Ethiopia.
Oh, does he?
Yes, he does.
Okay.
He used to live in the UK.
Yeah, I read that.
Yes, and he's currently living in Ethiopia.
Wow, the crown prince is living in Ethiopia.
Yes, so you see, we don't have, a huge issue.
Okay. So, in the past, the emperor was defender of the faith.
Yes.
Is your cousin Imperial Highness? Is he officially sort of incorporated into the church in any way, or is it?
No, not officially. We're not. There's officially there's no role, but unofficially, of course, we get the due respect, and there's a sort of understanding of what role we could potentially play. For instance, the church came to us to ask us, please help us renovate this cathedral. We didn't go to them. They came to us because they saw the role that it could be useful, that we could be spokesperson for issues like that. And we had no problem. I mean, it was very nice to be able to help fundraise, to help bring awareness to our church, to also not just the good part, the bad part, the persecutions that have gone on, especially during the communist period. So if there's value in being outspoken about, the really tragic part of our history, which has been sort of brushed aside and covered, it's very important, because as a nation we cannot heal if we continue denying sort of restorative justice. And that's where Ethiopia finds itself at the crossroads today, because it's not just the problem of the present, it's all the accumulated injustices of the past.
So do you think there needs to be a sort of truth and reconciliation committee?
Absolutely. I'm a very firm believer in that.
And is there any interest in that in the government?
Well, governments use it more for political expediency, but in essence, it is such an important, valuable thing that we as people have to recognize and start healing from. Otherwise, we'll continue to carry the same baggage of vengeance and continue in this cycle of violence.
I was going to follow up a question on the church, because I think for me, like if I hadn't been to Ethiopia or read about it, and if I just heard someone referring to a church, I wouldn't probably understand its importance in Ethiopia. So could you just explain, I know not everyone is Ethiopian Orthodox in Ethiopia, but a lot of the population is. For those people, can you just explain how they relate to the church and how it might be different than here in America or somewhere else?
Well, Ethiopians are very faithful in whichever faith you take them. But the predominant religion in Ethiopia is Orthodox Christianity. And I don't know if you saw it, but all the churches are full. It's full of real believers. And the old ancient churches are also living churches. I was in Lalibela for Christmas.
I saw, yeah.
And it was just a remarkable thing. And, you just meld into the crowd and you have an experience that's just unique. And nobody knew who I was there.
Oh, really?
Nobody. So you just meld into the pilgrims and the congregation, and the faith is a living faith. It's a very strong faith. I mean, you have to experience it to understand it.
Well, I did attend some services, and my favorite one was in the church in Gondor, which is the really famous church.
Yes.
And I got a prayer stick.
Yes.
And the service was about 3.5 hours.
It's a long one, yes.
Very long. Service. So people lean on sticks.
Long services.
And you're standing.
Long services. But, that's the tradition that's passed from grandparents to children, their children, and continues.
It was absolutely wonderful.
And that's what really keeps Ethiopian identity and culture together. Yeah. And it's not the single one that does that, but certainly it is has a predominance influence.
So the church in some ways plays the role that in its non-religious ways. I mean, it binds the country together in the same way that a monarchy can.
It does.
It has that role. So, I mean, sorry, I don't know what I'm asking. I just think it's absolutely fascinating. So what's the future of the Crown Council, I guess? I mean, we've talked about how it could potentially someday work more with the Ethiopian government, but in other respects, what are the future? Is it fundraising to restore things, or do you have any other plans?
Absolutely. I mean, on the practical level, it would be that. I think it could play a role in building healing and peace building at the right time during a process of national reconciliation, and also stop the ongoing wars that are so tragic that we're witnessing today. Because, I mean, how many years are we going to continue killing each other? And it just will be one aspect, one pillar, I think, that can bring sanity back to the nation. And I think the Ethiopian people are really they're so tired of war, and they want anchors that will give them a sense of stability.
So I came into the country from Kenya and Moyale and traveled overland. So I got to know some Oromo people. And I can imagine, there was one I got to know fairly well. I can imagine him saying, oh, well, you know, His Imperial Highness, he doesn't speak for me. I'm not interested in what he has to say because he's from, the Amharic speaking community or whatever.
Right.
I mean, what would you say to someone like that who is skeptical, I guess, of the role that the Crown Council could play or that the imperial family could play?
Everyone is entitled to their opinions, and I think that's the beauty of moving away from dictatorship. But inevitably what happens is one group will always have an excuse to dominate the other and will create stories and revise history just to do that. So my question to him would be, how are you going to break that cycle?
And then, again, this could be something that you prefer not to discuss, but I also went to Eritrea after, and I spent 3 weeks there. And I was there in 1997. So things were still great.
Yes.
Things are not great at all now. There were the signs looking back on it. You could see.
What year was that?
1997.
Okay, yeah, very different times.
Very different. It was a lovely place. I thought it was like one of the greatest places I ever went. So during your grandfather's reign, Eritrea was part of Ethiopia. Do you, as part of the Crown Council or the president of the Crown Council, do you see your role extending to Eritrea? I don't mean that in the sense of...
Not political.
Not political, but culturally.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we grew up, every year we used to go to Asmara and Misowa. We used to attend the ceremony of the Navy there. And some Italians used to take us to the Dalek Islands. And really, one of the most beautiful memories I have is of Eritrea. And we've always interacted with Eritreans. I have school friends to this day who are Eritreans and relatives. So the people, there is a bond between the people. There's a cultural affinity. So it's just a geographic divide. And one day I hope we come to our senses that we form some sort of economic or a bridge that will help both countries, realize their full potential, because all we've been doing is killing each other.
A lot of Western civilization was saved by Ireland. The monks there are hanging onto the documents. And I think Ethiopia has played a similar role. It's helped transmit all these things from the past that would be otherwise lost, and is such a valuable cultural treasure. But it's also like this extremely important country for the future of Africa. I guess, I don't know. I mean, we've touched on this before, but what do you think Ethiopia's potential is? If there is peace, if there is a common Ethiopian identity, what does the future look like for the people of Ethiopia in such a situation where it sort of realizes its full potential?
I think Ethiopia has huge potential. It's a rich country. Unfortunately, it's been portrayed as a poor one. As you said, it's sort of the cradle of Judeo-Christian culture. So has that cultural treasure it should share with the world. We have huge potential for tourism, for economic development. We're 130 million people. That's a powerhouse if it's used the right way. But the critical thing is, are we going to continue getting on boats and, being killed by border guards? Or are we going to have a home and feel at home and feel secure in it and also build it up? That's the big question.
I've got one more question. So let's say someone's watching this now. I'm assuming some people watching this will not have known that the Ethiopian Crown Council exists. And so they're hearing about it for the first time, but they're interested. I mean, I'll leave a link to the website. Sure. But are there things that people can follow or partake in or support
Absolutely. Absolutely. We've been really through the Royal Ethiopian Trust, which I will also give you a link. We have been very involved now with cultural preservation issues, as well as bringing attention to looted Ethiopian artifacts that so sadly are all over the world. And unfortunately, some of our own doing, others that were taken as war trophies. And we've worked with the Ethiopian Heritage Association there to rebuild that, to teach the younger generation that these things exist, that it's important to preserve them and continue having them for the next generation. So projects like that, which should be supported by anyone who really believes in cultural preservation, and they don't necessarily have to be Ethiopians. And we've had a good, response from that. So what we're hoping is to expand on the building blocks we started.
Excellent. Is there anything I haven't asked you about that you think people would be interested in hearing or knowing?
I think it's very important that the Ethiopian diaspora, which is also has a magnificent potential and is very much attached to that country, like maybe the Irish are or the Italians are. I think they have a very important role to play in the future because they've had the experience of having the education, the exposure abroad, and they can bring so many valuable tools in developing Ethiopia. And what I see now is that they are, unbelievably curious about their country, but they need to be further encouraged. Not that Ethiopia is a war-torn country, that it's a basket case that, that they should forget about it and live their new lives abroad, but to find a connection to their homeland and to serve it in the best way they can. I think that's very important.
Well, I can't thank you enough for your time. I really, really appreciate this. It's been a huge honor to speak to you and to learn about the Crown Council. And that's all I can say is thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And it was an additional pleasure because I know you've experienced Ethiopia. You know the feelings, you know the people, and that makes all the difference. And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.